Welcome back to the VET S.O.S network here, sitting on the stoop. We're about to get the scoop. Now, hey, today is going to be action-packed. I got a treat for y'all. But before we go any further, make sure that you like, you subscribe, you share it with a friend, because you're going to come back time and time again. But before we start, let me introduce you to a phenomenal human being. We are going to sit down with a warrior whose battles didn't end when the uniform came off. Marie Slider Henriksen is a combat medic, a survivor of trauma, addiction, and disability, and a fierce voice in the movement to heal out loud. Through recovery advocacy, podcasting, and building community spaces like Slider Babe, Marie is helping veterans and others step out of silence and into healing. She reminds us that recovery isn't weakness, it's courage in motion. This conversation is going to be about pain, resilience, truth, and what it means to rebuild your life, one honest step at a time. Now let's dive in. Greetings, Marie. How you doing today?
Hello. I am excited to be here. Tired, but I'm excited to be here. So
That's
thank you.
okay.
How are
We got
you?
our energy drink right here. Yeah, and I know you got yours too, but don't worry.
I got my hot chocolate.
There we go. So I just want to say thank you for coming in to the VET S.O.S network. Definitely sitting on the stoop, getting the scoop about Marie and what you're doing with great things in the resiliency space, podcasting space, and just helping other humans out space. So I just want to say thank you before we even start.
Thank you. I appreciate
I
that.
know a little bit about you. The audience, the listeners, the viewers, they reached out to me. It's like, hey, what's the scoop on Marie? I said, don't worry. I'm going to let her come and explain her scoop. Like, what's the scoop on her? I'll let her tell her scoop. So, Marie, what's the scoop on you?
So the scoop on me. So if you are interested in the details of my story, I am a co-host for another podcast called Every Day's a Saturday, USMC Veteran Coffee Talk with Brian and Marie. And in those episodes, we spent about 10 episodes really delving into my story. So if you want the full scoop of my story, please visit sliderbabe.com and you can get access to all of my podcast episodes. But for now, I'll just give you, just kind of like the short and skinny version of it.
Okay.
So, I had kind of a difficult childhood. I grew up in foster care after, being born to addict alcoholic parents. I dealt with different types of traumas. In When I hit puberty, I went through a lot of emotional turmoil. I was experiencing attention that was kind of unwanted, and I turned to addictions really quickly. And with that, my first true addiction was food. And I got stuck in I was binging and purging bulimia in junior high, and then I started with the alcohol and the weed. And I found myself in some not so good situations with friends that weren't the best. And I ended up finding myself in a situation where I had my virginity taken when I was 17. And I kind of didn't know what I was going to do in life. I was stuck in a lot of resentment and anger and frustration and sadness, and there were many layers that happened over those years. And so what I decided to do was to get out of my house after I graduated. I decided to join the army. I had gotten in an argument with my dad, and he had been Navy, back in the '60s, and
Yeah.
he's like, "Well, why don't you join the Navy or something?" And I was like, "Fine, I will." And so then I ended up in the Army. And so I joined the Army, and I was grateful to do it. It was kind of like the one thing in my life that I actually felt like I had control over, because through all the years before that,
Mm,
I always felt just super out of control. We were kinda talking about, before we started recording,
mm,
was my tendency was also to become a chameleon. I was a chameleon to
mm,
blend in because I didn't want you to leave me or abandon me, because I went through so much turmoil in childhood, you know, but I also became a peacock, because when a chameleon didn't work, when blending into what I thought you wanted didn't work, I was a peacock and I was loud and obnoxious and I had to
mm,
force myself on you to get the attention. And I never faced my traumas, never faced my emotions. I just never allowed myself to be who I really was. I didn't know who I really was. And so me joining the army was kind of a way for me to try and figure out who I wanted to be.
mm.
And so I joined the military, but wherever you go, there you are.
Right.
And because I never processed through my traumas, my first duty station was in Germany, and at 19, I was legally allowed to drink over there. And
Yes.
so alcohol just truly became my best friend. And I got married and divorced while I was over there to the first soldier that said he loved me. And as we went through a divorce, I really got lost in the alcoholism. I had a lot of wonderful, wonderful moments when I was in Germany. It was
Mm,
so fantastic, and sober me can look back and I can see a lot of those really
mm.
amazing positive moments, in my childhood, in my
Right.
junior high, in my military service. But where I was then, I was so blinded, and I was full of so much pain, and the only thing that I could do to make me feel better was seeking comfort in the arms of others and
Mm,
in the bottle. And it was that was it, and but I had a lot of again, a lot of moments where I was able to travel a lot. I had some
mm.
really good experiences just in the military in general, but the alcohol became my best friend. And promiscuity, seeking comfort in codependency was just that was my life. That was just normal for me. I ended
Wow.
up getting stationed out in Washington State, and as soon as I got out to Washington, I found out that I was getting deployed. And yet again, you take a
Mhm,
traumatized child, turn her into a traumatized teenager, and send her into the military, and then you give her a gun and throw her in Iraq as a combat medic. I did not handle things very well at all.
mm,
Um, my deployment was rocky. There was a lot of unit corruption that was going on. We were also getting mortared all the time. I was kind of the cleanup crew for a while, and so I saw my share of bodies and blood and cleaning up and doing what I had to do.
mhm.
I had gotten pretty good at sneaking alcohol. you know,
Yep.
that was what I did, and again, seeking comfort in other people's arms. And I ended up going on missions. I worked with the field artillery guys for a while and went on a bunch of missions, and I also got myself into some drama and some trauma and ended up getting investigated while I was out there. And then I went home on leave after being there for 8 months, and
Mhm,
after I got home, the day after I got home, my hips gave out, and they told me that I had bursitis and tendonitis. They sent me back to the deployment for the last 4 months, but I was grounded to the fob, and they put me
mhm,
on a dead man's profile, and they're like, "Hey, we can't really do much for you." And
mm.
so I was doing physical therapy 3 days a week and just trying to survive. And when I got back stateside, they told me, "Hey, you cannot be a soldier anymore, and we are going to medically discharge you." And I didn't really know that I had an alcohol problem, but I knew that I wanted to take a break from alcohol for a little while. Like, I was so
Right.
delusional. And so I took a year without drinking, And in that year, I was getting medically discharged and I was just miserable. I was
Mhm.
miserable. And I just did what I had to do to get out. I socialized and partied and I finished up my job. I started working at the the brigade surgeon cell, which was helping my unit get ready to deploy again.
Mhm.
And I just felt such survivor's guilt with all of this, like, "Hey, I'm getting
Right.
these guys ready to deploy. I can't go with them." I'm
Right.
also hurting from losing the people that we were in Iraq and feeling like a shitty soldier because I know what my priorities were in Iraq. Even though I was doing my job and I was working hard, I was playing harder. And so there was a
Right.
lot of survivor's guilt that was going on there. And so I ended up getting medically discharged, and when I got out, I lost myself for a little while in the addictions and then decided to go to school. So I had gone to school and was going for elementary education and then math education. I had a fiance. We were together for a few years, but it was a very codependent alcoholic relationship.
Mhm.
When that did not work out because I was not facing any of my stuff still, we ended up breaking up in a rough way. I didn't treat him very well, and he had his own struggles. When we broke up, I really lost myself for a long time, for a few years. So that was about 2015. I decided to drop out of school and move cross country. I was in Arizona at this time
Mhm.
and moved out to Florida. And in Florida is when my alcoholism got really, 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 really out of control. And it had gotten to the point where I was drinking every day. I was driving drunk. I was partying with college kids, like getting a keg for college kids. Like it was the most
Right.
ridiculous thing. And my life was about codependency, finding comfort in other people and in the substances. And along all of this time as well, I'm not really paying attention, but there's stuff going on with my body as well. There's
Mhm.
there's injuries that have been going on in my body, but I'm just drinking to make myself feel better continually, and then taking pain pills and weed, and that was my life until I almost killed a friend. And I almost killed him in a drunk driving incident. Luckily, God grabbed the wheel and straightened it out as I was
Mhm.
about to get hit by a car that was speeding past me. And in that moment, I knew that something needed to change, you know? Now, I am skipping over so many
Right.
layers. I'm
No.
just kind of giving giving
Right. The
giving the
reader's not
basis
right.
here. Yeah. So, when God decided to let me know, "Hey, this is enough," and I finally I kn he had tried telling me for years. But this was the one time that I finally reached out and grabbed his
Mhm.
hand that had been outstretched to me the entire time, and, I decided to get sober. And getting sober was the best decision that I have ever made, ever, and it has also been the hardest thing.
Right.
So I got sober, and, for a while, I was very, very much like, "Okay, I'm just my focus is on sobriety." I had to quit
Right.
my job because, my mental health and my physical health just wasn't doing good. I, started just jumping into service work and recovery work and staying sober, but it was like, "I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this," but I wasn't really allowing it to sink in because I did not realize how much mental health problems I actually had. And so
Right.
after I had been sober almost a year, I started having pseudo seizures or seizure-like episodes where, like, it was kind of like manic episodes my body couldn't
Right.
handle. They diagnosed me bipolar, and then a few months later, I ended up in the psych unit for the first time. And so this was in 2018. I had been out of the military since 2011. And I went to the psych unit that first time, and that was when I finally allowed myself to be fully triggered into my military
Mhm.
stuff and into my childhood stuff. And they diagnosed me bipolar borderline with PTSD, started me on a bunch of medications, And over the next 5 years, I kind of went through this journey up and down. It
Mm,
was, as I got on the meds, things kinda started balancing. However, I started turning to food for addiction, you know,
mhm.
and I started gaining weight and gaining weight and gaining weight. And,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. So when I said that our stories are
Right.
similar, I'm telling you,
Wow. And this is the
similar
first
stories.
wow. Wow. So that's why I'm
Yeah,
shaking my house like, wow.
yeah, yeah. So I ended up in 2020 with my church. I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was
Mm,
raised in my church. I fell away for a long time, and in my sobriety, I started getting back into figuring out what spirituality was, who my higher
mm,
power was, and I ended up going back into the church. And in 2020, I went to the temple and I was really working on myself. But then on my drive back, because I had come out to Utah to go to the temple, on my drive back is when COVID hit and everything just hit super hard.
mm.
And I started going back to old patterns of behavior and ended up losing my recommend, continuing to gain weight. And in 2021, I moved out here to Utah because my dad got dementia. So I moved out here. I started doing trauma therapy finally. I
Mm,
started losing weight. I ended up going into the psych unit again as I went through trauma therapy. And they took me off of all of my medications because they're like, "Oh, you're not bipolar, you are borderline." Once I started actually addressing all my mental health stuff, the meds
right.
stopped working for me because it's an emotional thing.
Yeah.
So then that next couple of years, I started having a lot more physical problems. I ended up having to get my hips replaced. And while I was in the facility, I got married. And when I got out, I ended up doing an intensive outpatient program because as I was losing the weight and dealing with more trauma to my body and changes in my life, I got stuck in the bulimia again. And so I did an intensive outpatient program for PTSD and food addiction back in 2024. Last year, the beginning of last year, this is when I kind of really started flourishing and
Mm.
kind of feeling more me than I used to
Yes.
be. Okay.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
last year was a very interesting year, and I'll go into a little bit more details of that in just a minute. But I wanted to say before I go into that stuff, as I was working through so many different layers and feeling better and actually making changes in my life, there were still more layers that I had to go through that I didn't realize.
Right.
And so I actually, just a couple weeks ago, just got out of 6 weeks inpatient. I took
Nice.
a month PTSD program to really, really get inside and figure out kind of some layers that I didn't realize were there. And, the program, it's called Strong Hope. It's for active duty military and veterans here in
Oh,
Utah.
wow.
It's for complex PTSD. So for childhood stuff, for sexual stuff, for military stuff, for all of it. And this program was just phenomenal. And it kind of opened my eyes
Oh,
to some more layers that I didn't know I was there. And so I jumped forward to that just to kind of explain that
mm,
even though last year I was feeling so much better than I've ever felt in my life, there were still all of these layers. And
right.
and I'm so grateful that I found this program to help me. But going back to last year, so that's just so you know kind of where
Mm.
I'm at today. But last year I got this prompting that I needed to publish a book.
Yes,
And
congratulations on that, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah. And so, the book is a book of my own poetry about recovery from trauma and addictions, and
Mm.
it is covered in my own photography, and so it's
Oh,
called
nice.
"More Me Than I Used to Be: A Journey to Freedom."
Oh, I'm gonna have to get a
And
copy of that book, so I'm gonna have to come back on to talk about that specifically. Oh, yes. Can you hold that
yes,
up one
sir.
more time? Is it more?
Yes, sir. More
Oh, nice,
me than I used to be, a journey to freedom. And
nice.
if you will humor me, I would like to read you a poem that one of my poems that I
Oh,
wrote.
sure. Yes.
And so the reason why I titled it More Me Than I Used to Be was that I wrote a poem in my earlier sobriety that's called More Me Than I Used to Be. And it's about
Mm,
that idea of kind of breaking through the cracks and kind of going back to the person that I know God wanted me to be, but
right.
I had gotten lost in my traumas and my addictions for so long. And so I want to read you this poem, but before I do that, I'll just tell you. So when I decided that I wanted to publish this poem, I was like,
Mm,
okay, I probably need to get myself out there, you know. And so that is when I went and I interviewed with Brian over at Every Day's a Saturday, and he just kind of told or let me share
right.
my story. And it was my first time sharing my story like in public. I've shared my story in recovery groups before,
Mhm.
but it was my first time sharing it in a groups or like in public. And he's like, "Hey, we really get along well. Come back and be a co-host with me." And so then we started
Oh, that's
chewing. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. So then we really started chewing. We spent about 10 episodes really chewing apart both of our stories. So he's a
Mm,
Marine vet and I'm Army, and with so many similarities and differences in our story, we really started like getting into it. And we spent like a couple episodes on our childhoods and a couple episodes on our
mm,
our teenage years, a couple episodes on our military, and then everything else. And then as we were doing that, I'm getting more and more into just like recovery advocacy as well. And so
wow.
we started bringing guests on to kind of share their story and to
Wow.
not so much focus on the military side of things,
Right.
but really, really focus on that getting out of the military, reintegration, and their
Mhm.
mental health journeys. And if they have received help, what programs do they utilize? What programs are they a part of? Do they need support? And we
Mm.
let them heal out loud on our podcast and share their
Wow.
stories, kind of like what you're doing.
Right.
We let people just share their stories. And so as I'm doing that, I also started being a guest on multiple other shows. And as I'm doing that, I'm also doing individual recovery advocacy, and I'm connecting with a lot of the local veteran nonprofits, and I'm taking phone calls and video chats with people, veterans or civilians, that are
Nice.
needing recovery from trauma and addictions. And I have no degrees. I've got nothing like that. I am just another sick person sharing my journey of how I've been
That's
able to
huge.
stay sober and to find healing, you know?
Wow,
And
that's huge, Marie. That's
yeah,
thank you for sharing. Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So are you okay if
Wow.
I read you this poem?
Please, yes. I'm sitting on the edge of this chair right here.
Okay, so I'm gonna read you this and then I'll shut up and let you ask questions,
Okay.
But I okay. So this just kind of explains, the journey that I've been on. And this is my favorite poem that I ever wrote, and that's why I titled it for the first book, More Me
Mhm.
Than I Used to Be. And I wrote this at about a year sober. And in my sobriety, I've written off and on for years since I
Mhm.
was a child. But in my sobriety, God gave me this new voice to just be able to share with people where I'm at in a way that they could identify. And not everybody will
Mhm.
identify with the way that I write.
Right.
There's a lot of people that don't. I write mostly like I'm writing to my inner child,
Mhm.
and so there's a lot of adult themes, but it's very simplistic, you
Right.
know. And so this is my poem. So more me than I used to be. Let me put it up. All of my life, I've collected pieces of varying sizes and shapes. I don't know why I held some close and others I hid behind drapes. Some people offered me distorted pieces, and as a hoarder, I couldn't see that even though they were part of a puzzle, they didn't belong to me. They were part of someone else's picture, usually those who were trying to hand them over to me instead of by their own box abiding. Like them, I too offered pieces to others along my path. And as I'm learning to step back, sometimes I have to laugh. There are some holes inside that make the picture hard to see. In other places, I force the shape of a distorted figure of me. I know the image I manipulated is not the one God made, for He created everything beautiful just the way they were laid. At some point, I looked in other boxes, wishing mine was different. So I started mixing up our pieces, creating something magnificent. I started forcing pieces together, throwing others away, stealing some from other people, and my picture changed every day. Where I'm at now is trying to get back to the box that is mine alone. And with the help of other people, God's will is being shown. I'm learning how to pick up pieces, the ones I tried to hide, by giving them to other people or thrown away in pride. I'm letting go of the distorted ones that don't fit anywhere and giving them back to their owners so their box won't be so bare. God painted the picture on my box to be the way He desired. And I'm done trying to change things. It makes me just too tired. Slowly but surely, as I get things in order, I know one day I'll find the picture that God had planned for me that got lost in my mind. Pieces are finally fitting together in the way I know He wants. He's telling me that I'll be okay in my heart and in my thoughts. The only thing I know for sure is I'm more me than I used to be. And I know the final piece of art is more perfect than eyes can see.
Wow. You ever see like when you go to the spoken out loud, they do the silent
The
man.
snaps.
Yeah, the snaps. Yes, yes, the silent snaps. That was beautiful, Marie.
Thank you.
And I shared my journey with you before we hit record, and this, what you just read right now, is a definition of healing out loud. That's what I took away from it, and that's what your journey, your new journey, or your updated journey, is to help people heal out loud. And by that poem right there, when you wrote that, what did it mean for you? I know I don't know if it's going to be hard to dig back to that time you actually wrote that poem, but what did it mean to you when you was putting pen to paper and putting those words collectively together?
I wrote that 8 years ago.
Hmm.
Almost exactly 8 years ago because I hit my 9 years in January.
Congrats.
And thank you. Um, I remember. Oh, when I wrote that poem, it was like God was speaking right through me, and it was I was hearing him let me know that I'm gonna be okay. I was hearing him let me know that my journey was worth it, and that every piece of my journey that I've been through is 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 a part of me, that this puzzle that I have, that that the picture is so much more beautiful than I'll ever imagine. And I don't even know, sorry, I'm good. There's
No,
like so many different thoughts like
right?
going through my mind, but it's like I don't know, it was just like God sloughing off everything that wasn't me, you know? That another analogy is, one of my bishops told me once. He said, "God molds some people with clay, He's like,
Mm.
"Okay, you're this clay and I'm gonna mold you into what I want you to do." And he's like, "But you are like the statue of David." When somebody asked how Michelangelo created the statue of David,
Right.
he just said, "I chipped away everything that wasn't him." And that's the thing is, yeah, is I've been stuck in this case of cast that I had put around me because of my own choices and because of what happened to me when I was younger and I didn't have a voice and I didn't have a say, with what happened to me. And I just became hard and I just became this thing that just wasn't me. And
Oh,
so, it was like when I was writing that poem, it was like God finally breaking through to show me the picture that he had for me.
wow.
So it
And
was
that
just very
is
freeing.
and that's part of the recovery journey, that I shared with you that you're sharing with us right now. And that so I had a conversation with a young airman. I went out to do a Air Force Winter Warrior briefing the other day for a unit over here in San Antonio, Texas at Lackland. And she walked up to me and she shared her story of what you just shared, similar. And when you read your poem, I was thinking like, and this was me a couple of days ago, Marie, like, why did she come up to me after the briefing just to share her story? And now I'm connected with her. So I said, hey, follow the VET S.O.S podcast. Like it's gonna be something that's gonna help you along the way because this right here is helping me. Like I shared my story, like that's the deepest I got in my story that the other day. And she came up to me with a notepad and pen. She's like, I was just writing a lot of stuff down because I'm going through so much. And what you just shared, Marie, that's along what we talked about earlier, similar lanes, different journeys, but it's the same. So this recording right here, I know it's gonna help because I'm gonna send it to her once it goes live because I was wondering why I was getting all this different. This week was very challenging for me, I'll just say. And to culminate it with having you here to share the recovery journey, to talk about healing out loud, because sometimes it's so loud on the inside, sometimes it needs to come out. And you know what I mean by that.
Oh yeah.
So my question, like, how do you stay grounded when triggers appear? Because I know, like I told you, every day is a battle for me. Every day I tell myself, just make it to tomorrow. Every day. People ask me, hey, how many days do you go to the gym? I said, every day that ends in a Y. And I told you why I can't. I said, why? Because I woke up this morning. Why? Because people depend on me. Why? Because I need to do it because I am here now. Why? That's why I go every day that ends with a Y. So how do you, what's some of your ways you handle and stay grounded when triggers appear? Because I know it's gonna help somebody that's gonna come across this and that's on their last breath or their last like man something gotta happen. Like I'm looking for something. So this is their answer. I'm telling you because we're already on the same way.
So can I answer that first with
Yes,
a poem?
please. Oh, I love this recording. This is man, this is what was needed. This is what was needed today. Yes, yes, please, and thanks.
Okay, so this poem is going to be in my new book that will be coming out soon. So this book that I have, it's officially published and I'm just working to get copies on my website to get it sold and then I'm working on publishing a second one. And so this book or this poem is actually called Healing Out Loud.
Mm,
And so I suffered in silence for far too long. I always felt that something was wrong. I kept all inside, was close to imploding. I then heard other voices and I started unloading. God loosened my voice that was locked inside. Other people showed me to let go of pride. I started learning to heal out loud, become more confident, and feel more proud. I wrote and shared through poetry how I am more me than I used to be. I have shared my art to others around to show how I see beauty abound. Now, through speaking, the words keep flowing. There will never be a way of knowing just how many people my voice might touch. It's in God's hands. I know that much. I have been enjoying using my voice, sharing my story, and making the choice to no longer filter my faith or pain and remind others that hope does remain. I encourage others to heal out loud too. Whatever that looks like is between God and you.
Mm,
Don't suffer in silence. It's not very fun. Please find help from anyone. Address the fears that keep you frozen. You may find you have been chosen. Your
mm,
healing out loud may help just one person when the doubts in their head begin to worsen. Your healing may be the light that they need, the spark of hope, a faithful seed that pulls them from a dark abyss. When we heal out loud, it won't go amiss. Thank you all who were an example to me in sharing your voice. You helped set me free. And so I as I said in there, one of
wow. I don't know why my eyes are sweating right now, Lovely. Like my eyes are like sweating. Like for the listeners out there that's listening audio, like my eyes are kind of sweating right now. So I'm just trying to push some things back in. That's all.
Yeah.
Wow.
But that's the thing, is like the biggest thing that I do nowadays is I use my voice. I use my voice to get help. Like I made a
Mm,
choice when I got sober a long time ago. I made a choice that I will do whatever the heck I need to stay sober. And part of that is using my voice. It is being an advocate for myself. It is reaching out for help. It is sharing my story with other people. It's the whole idea is I heal out loud because I almost lost myself in silence, right? I
yes.
heal out loud so other people don't have to suffer in silence. Like you were
Wow.
saying, when you opened up to that woman felt safe to come talk to you and tell you what was going on with her. And that is my biggest thing. When I'm feeling triggered, I address it. Usually I will write about it or I'll pray about it or I'll feel the
Mm,
emotions, but the biggest thing that I do is reach out to somebody else. I either reach out to a sponsee, reach out to my sponsor. I see how I can help somebody else. I see how other people can help me, and it's just this big, huge. Okay, do I need to talk to a therapist? Do I need to talk to my husband? Do I need to talk to a religious person? Do I need to talk to a recovery person? The
right.
whole thing is letting go of that pride and ego that says that I'm better than you, so I don't need
Mm,
you to help me, or I'm worse than you and I don't deserve your help. That's all
mm,
ego, you know? And so
wow.
I have to let go of that ego and I have to use my voice to get help. And so that's
Wow.
my biggest thing. And I will shout it on the rooftops, use your voice, find your voice. I
Mm,
have an actual voice where I've got my podcasting and I talk to people and then I write. Writing
mm,
is my huge voice, but find your own voice, whatever that looks like. But
wow.
just you have to be your own advocate.
Wow. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that. That was wow. The first poem was good. This poem, like this one hit me with that right there in the middle of the chest. Bow.
Well,
Gasp for
because you're
air.
you're also following that same call that I have. When you are doing this podcast, this is what you are doing. You are healing out loud. You are giving a voice to other people and you are using your own voice out there. And that's why it hits you so hard because you see the benefit in it just like me. That's why you're doing this. And you're doing it like me, all voluntarily. Like, we're not
Yeah.
getting paid to do this crap.
No.
We're just being here for the next person, just like
Yeah.
other people were there for us. And I
Yeah.
think it's beautiful, and I love how compassionate and how passionate you are about doing the same thing.
This is
Like-minded
huge.
individuals,
Right.
it's wonderful.
Look, and remember when we came on, you popped out. I said, "Okay, I got the other shirt here or stand by just in case if Marie come." And then we came in with the same color. Like, if that's not a sign, then I don't know what. Like, that is so awesome. Like, I'm just sitting here just thinking about that. Like, wow. Like, what are the odds? You understand what I'm saying? Like, what? And then I shared my story with you, not knowing Marie Slider Henriksen at all prior to today.
Yeah.
One of my questions, I'm definitely gonna look more into it. What's the scoop on Slider Babe and the community for that? Like, because I like what you're doing. Your poems are. I can't wait till I get a look. I can't wait till I have that in the collection. Right, part 1 and part 2,
Thank you.
because those are living documents. Because I know when I read those 2 poems 5 years from now, it's gonna hit me different because I'm gonna experience 5 years worth of healing.
Mhm.
Just like you said, 8 years after you wrote it, but I know you're experiencing a different version or different variation of the healing process years
Oh,
later.
yeah. Yep.
So it's
Ev
living, it's a living, breathing document. Timeless.
Yeah, every time I go and I reread my poems, they hit me in a different way, and every time I write a new poem, it is a new layer that I am going through. It's so wonderful. I love it. I
That's
love poetry
powerful.
for that reason. Yeah. But you were asking about the
Eh,
Slider Babe
So,
thing.
yes, yes. So what
Yeah.
is that all? What's the scoop on that?
Okay. So Slider Babe is so Slider is my maiden name, my adopted maiden name. And when I had joined the military and I was in Germany and going through divorce, I did not know who I was, where I belonged. I was in the middle of all of my addictions and did not know anything.
Mm,
And then I remembered what I do know is no matter the rough childhood that I had, because, in my adopted family, we had trials, we had trauma, just like most families. We had multiple foster kids, adopted kids, and there was a lot of other stuff that was going on in the home. A few other addict alcoholics, but despite everything that I had gone through, when I was questioning, trying to figure out who I remembered I am the baby of my family and I
mm,
was chosen. I was chosen. I was adopted. I was chosen. And so no matter anything else, I didn't
right.
know the answers to anything else, but I knew that I was loved. And that kind of goes along with my spirituality, right? I don't
Mm,
know anything. I don't know. There's a scripture in the Book of Mormon. I don't know the meaning of all things. Nevertheless, I know that God loveth his children.
mm.
Like, if I don't know
Yes.
anything else, I know that God loves me. And so the
Yes.
Slider Babe came from, I don't know anything else, but I know that my family loves me, even though that I was trauma. And so Slider Babe became my little thing. Like, I'm the baby of my family and my last name Slider.
Nice.
And so I
Nice.
kept that, kind of, I actually have a tattoo, you can't see it right now, but it's a frog and a mushroom and it says Slider Babe on top, and then Meg, which
Nice.
is my
Nice.
military nickname, you know? But so Slider Bay was just kind of something I held on to. Last
Mm,
year, when I decided to publish this book, I had the feeling to do something with Slider Babe. So I started an LLC called Story Code Ventures, but Slider Babe Poetry and Art has kind of been this thing that I've had on my social media on Facebook.
mm.
So so Slider Babe Poetry and Art, that was my page where I had my poetry, where I had my photography. I dabble in other types of art and other types of
Nice.
writing. And so that was kind of where that started. But when I published this book and kind of started thinking about where I wanted to go in life, a big thing that I decided I wanted to do was I created Slider Babe Publishing. And so
Okay.
Slider Babe Publishing was to publish my book. And then as I was thinking, I was like, okay, as I'm healing out loud, how can I encourage other people to also heal out loud? And so that's where the Slider Babe community came from. And
Mm,
so it's in the baby stages right
nice.
now. I started it on Facebook. So if you go to Facebook and look up the Slider Babe group, SLIDERBABE, the
Okay.
whole focus of that is creatively healing out loud through community. And so the idea
Yes.
is I go on there and I post some of my poetry or some of my podcasts, and other people have started sharing their own way that they creatively heal out loud. And so like
Wow.
there's some people that write poetry, there's people that write poem or book or yeah, books. There's some people that write songs. There's some people that use AI
Mm,
to write songs. There's some people that do, like knitting, or
mm,
they do art or podcasting or whatever. And so people will go on there and just kind of share what they are using to help them heal and support each other. So it's in the baby stages. I literally got it started in November. So there's not much traction. And then I ended up in the psych
wow.
unit. So I kind of was out of the loop for a little while.
Right.
But
Wow.
my plan is to set up kind of like a Discord type thing with the
Okay.
Slider Babe community at some point. And so people can go in there and have like voice chats and support each other in their creative needs, and people can collaborate and just share their stories and seek resources.
Mm,
And that's another thing that I'm working on with my website that I'm working on developing. I'm going to have a couple pages of resources for people. So
nice.
I collect resources, especially with the veterans right now. That's mostly what my circle is.
Okay.
And so I am working on creating a database of local Utah resources, but also
Nice.
connecting to other states for resources. So the whole community is going to be, I share my stuff with you, you share your stuff with me. If you need
That's
some
what we doing right
recovery,
here. Look at this. Yeah.
yeah,
Perfect.
yeah. And if you need recovery advocacy, I will help
Mm,
you find, resources in your local area. And I will
wow.
have resources on the website as well. So that's kind of
Wow.
what we're doing. Yeah.
Wow. So, in my I tell people my profession in the military, I like to still keep it active, right? So I was doing a little search on Maria. I found some verbiage that you shared during the podcast and during conversation on other platforms, and I just want to open this back up because I would like you to just do a little mini dive into it because like I said, the listeners, they're listening and they're healing right now as we heal out loud. One of the things that you said was recovery is bravery in motion. What's the scoop on that?
I honestly don't remember saying that. When did I say that? Like
Like
I
I
don't
said, I've
even
been
know.
like so for I think I had like 2 weeks that I was on the internet. I was just like just trying to just scrub the interweb, and I was like, wow, because I was just thinking about healing out loud. You know, my trauma is part of my story, not my identity. It's like these are some of the things that came across. Like we're similar, different, and similar, and the same.
Yeah. Well,
And
oh, go ahead.
no, I was
Sorry.
gonna say, and it's just like I'm just sitting here listening to you, and I see me in you. I see me in your journey. I see me in your poems. So if I see me in that, I can only imagine how many others are seeing themselves in what you just shared with us in this short time here.
Well, so one of the things, that I try to do when I am doing recovery advocacy in
Mm,
person with people one on one, every time I come on a podcast, every time I share in recovery, anytime I do that, I kind of step out of the way and I try to allow God to speak through me.
mhm.
And with that, I also have memory problems because of my mental health stuff. And so I don't always remember everything that comes out, and I don't always remember what I'm talking about. So if I said those words, I do not remember, but I would assume with that kind of thing, recovery is bravery in motion. That's the quote.
Yes.
Yeah, so I guess that whole thing is that idea is, that relates to me with regards to resiliency. So
Mhm.
my definition of resiliency is not like being strong, right? Resiliency is the ability to continue going and to reach out for help. It's not and that's the thing that I look at. And so if I'm saying bravery in motion, I'm saying like it's the courage to reach out for help and to keep taking that next step forward, because
Wow.
we can't learn how to walk by ourselves, right? We
Yeah.
have to have somebody holding our hand and helping us. And so the idea is even as adults to
Wow.
keep learning how to move forward as we continue having that strength and that courage to reach out for help, to reach out one more time, to take one more step, no matter what. Like one of my biggest things is I can't trust my brain
Mhm.
because of many different reasons. I've got the borderline personality, anxiety, depression. I don't
Mhm.
sleep very well. I have PTSD, and I also have connective tissue problems which actually cause some of the memory problems as well. I've got something called hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. And
Mhm.
so I also have POTS, and so my body is constantly in fight or flight. So anyways, all of this to say I can't trust my brain. And so what I
Wow.
have to do is I have to bypass my brain and I have to speak with my spirit and tell my brain to shush for a while and take
Mm.
the step anyway. I know, brain, that you are sad, that you are hurting, that you are scared, that you are worried, that you are resentful. I know that that is what's going on inside of you. And I get that. I hear that. I validate that those emotions are real and huge and big. And we're gonna take a step anyway. We are going to move forward anyway, and
Mm.
sometimes I'm kind with myself that way, and sometimes I'm mean to myself, and I say, "Shut the hell up, brain. Just shut up. I'm going to take this step anyway. This is between me and God. It has nothing to do with you. So you just need to go away for a little bit, and I'm gonna take this step." And so, again, recovery, bravery, and motion, it's just that ability to just take the next step forward no matter
Wow.
what.
Didn't I share that with you earlier before we hit record? I said just
Yeah.
keep moving. No
Yes.
matter how fast, slow, just keep moving. And what I
Yes.
didn't share with you, and you know, you ever heard that saying? If you hearing the same thing at different times from different people,
It's what you
eh,
need to hear.
it's what you need to hear. So I'm sharing this with you as I'm sharing it with the audience. So remember, I told you earlier this week I went to do a briefing over on Lackland, and I had this. I shared my story, like I said, the way I never shared it before. And after my story, a young man stood up and he's like, "Sir, do you remember me?" I'm like, "No." Like you said, I remember it just. He said, he's an E7 now. So he said he was an E3 when he came into my office when I was a career advisor. And I was the only one CNCO that he was around that did not discount him, that did not discard him. And he shared this, it was over 100 people there. He shared this standing up, and she's like, I was that young airman that I kept coming to his office and I wanted to be a career advisor. And that's why and this happened this week. At the beginning of this week, Maria, now we here talking about it at the end of the week. And this is another form of validation. Like you said, If I, you, me, whoever's listening keeps hearing the same thing at different times from different people, is what you need to hear. It's what's needed to be heard. It's
Can
not.
I Oh, go ahead.
Yes, please. No, I was gonna say if you can, if you have another poem in there, because I know we're coming up to the end, but if you have another poem in there that just captures what we just shared, I'm sure you do, because it's something that just told me to ask you to share another poem. I don't know if that's what you was about to do.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've got another poem that
No
I
way. Wow.
yeah.
Oh my goodness. Man.
S
Okay.
so this poem, because we're talking about that whole idea of just moving forward no matter what, and keep going and whatnot. So I wanted to read this one, and it's called "The Power of Thoughts," and I think you'll enjoy this one. I mean, I've got about 50 billion poems, and all of my poems connect to something, but
Wow.
this is kind of like, it's a poem and a call to action as well. But it talks
Mm,
about that how thoughts are so powerful, right?
mhm,
Thoughts are more powerful than 1,000-pound weight. They can push and pull inside you, change your focus from love to hate. They can chain you down to the bed where you rest. They can definitely guilt you for not being good, better, best. They can contort the way all faces appear, especially the one looking back from the mirror. They can make you assume the world would be best if you can just stop breathing with the rest. They can make you see that darkness is better and there's no point at all to be a goal setter. Don't
mm,
fret. The solution from all of this madness is just changing those thoughts from pain to gladness. You see, thoughts are more powerful than 1,000,000-pound weight. They can lift you up higher than this mortal state. They can open your eyes to a paradise of love filled up with the light as bright as the sun up above. They can fill your heart with the connection we share with nature, each other, all things, everywhere. They can contort the pain in everyone's faces to become a gratitude of having been to those places. They can remind us of old pains and fears so we can be supportive and help others shed tears. Again, thoughts are more powerful than anything you can imagine. They actually control the heaven or hell you're living in.
mm.
So I ask you today to go into your mind, alone or with help, go deeply to find the motivation to change your thoughts point of view from pain, anger, sadness, or anything askew, and turn it towards hope, love, faith, and peace. And you will find in the end an eternal release.
Thank you for that. I can't wait to go back and listen to this and keep this episode on repeat, because I needed this week for me, because I had a lot of questions. I had a lot of doubt that I couldn't answer. I could see it, but it wasn't making sense to me. I was like, why is this happening right now? Why? But like we shared earlier, stuff have to happen so other things can happen. The process. You and I here together on this podcast right now at this moment, at this time, at this juncture in our lives and other people's lives that's gonna come across this. I wish there was a word in the dictionary to culminate this. I'm just gonna say powerful.
Serendipitous. That's
So
the
there we
word.
go. Serendipitous. I'm gonna have to look how to spell that too, because I'm gonna add that to my vocabulary.
It's
Ser-
serendipitous. It's just kind of works out the way that it's supposed to.
wow. So Marie, how can they get in contact with you? How can they reach out? How can they be a part of the community that you're building up on Slider Bay? Like, how can they get a copy of that beautiful book, part one, because part two is being done right now? And how can they connect and still help others and help themselves heal out loud?
So sliderbabe.com, SLIDERBABE, sliderbabe.com. If you go to that right now, I'm in the process of building this website. It's only been a couple of months that I've been really working on this. I've got a business partner who works in automations, and he's helping me with this website. And so at some point soon, everything will be on that website. But for right now, if you go to sliderbabe.com, there's a link tree. And on that link tree, when you first go into the website, you can sign up as sign up with your email. And when you get your email, once I get the book ready to go, I'll be sending out a mass email to everybody and saying, "Hey, here's what's going on." Once I get the Slider Babe community, going, I will send out a mass email. So sliderbabe.com is where you can go right now to sign up with your email. It's also where you can go to access my podcast. It's also where you can go to access all of my guest appearances on podcasts. So this podcast will be on sliderbabe.com as well. Oh, well, it'll be on my YouTube
Right.
thing anyways.
Right.
So you'll be able to access it. And you can also access my poetry and my Facebook. And if you go to Facebook, you can look up Slider Babe. So Slider Babe group. So there's Slider Babe Poetry and Art, which is my own personal stuff. And that is just a page. But if you look up the Slider Babe group, then you can join the Facebook community and share how you are creatively healing out loud. If you are seeking advocacy for yourself, and needs just somebody to talk to, whether you're civilian or military or veteran or whatever, and just need someone to talk to, please feel free to send me an email and I'll reach out to you. And if you would like to be a guest on my podcast, there's also a button that you can click on there to be a guest as well. So the big thing is
Nice.
sliderbabe.com, and just sliderbabe in general is how you find me. If you do a Google search for sliderbabe, you will find me. So it's all
Uh,
over right now.
Thank
But
you.
yes, yeah.
This is, man, this is how we ride off into the sunset for today. Like, this is perfect. And this is a great segue to share about the VET S.O.S podcast network. The theme and the message we have is you do not have to drown in a sea of transition. Grab that VET S.O.S lifeline. And what is the transition? You could be going, transition is one day to the next. Transition is from one situation to the next. Transition could be something big. It could be something small. It could be your something. Transition. You do not have to drown in a sea of transition. Reach out to Marie and her people. Reach out to me. Just reach out. If you stick your hand out, somebody will stick their hand out to help you through. I guarantee. A lot of things I don't guarantee, but I guarantee why? Because I lived that life. For a long time, I didn't have my hand out, and people had their hand out extended, and I kept smacking it down and smacking it away. But when I was ready, I reached out, and I had loads and loads of hands coming to help me. And before we sign off, I know, Marie, I'm going to ask you if you have one more poem to send us off, because, like I said, we are so connected that, like you said, it's not me. It's not kings talking. I'm being used as I'm a vessel right now. So if you have one more to let us sign off, I'll greatly appreciate it if you'll share.
Yes, please. I have one more. Maybe you saw me get excited looking at my book, but yes, I've got one more for you, and I love it. So it's called My Tools. And I wrote this one a little over a year sober. And thank you so much for having me on here. You know, I love it, and I think that you'll appreciate this poem. And it's that idea that we are not alone in our journeys. Somebody's always there to help. Anyways, so it's called My Tools. I was given two simple tools when I first opened my eyes. They were both meant to help me to get beyond the lies. One was a ladder that extended way beyond my farthest sight. One was a sturdy shovel to dig through pain or fight. The goal was to move forward and share love along the way, but somehow I got lost, and in pain, I chose to stay. Instead of using my shovel to help move the pain aside or fight through the emotions until they would subside, I kept digging even deeper, and the walls began to climb. One day when I looked up, I saw the cage inside my mind. In that moment, I remembered the infinite ladder on the edge, and I hoped the extending power could reach down below the ledge. In earnest, I yelled out, hoping someone would hear, and the one who gave the tools showed he was actually very near. He threw me down the ladder, but again, I got distracted. I started digging yet again, and the ladder never retracted. Once I started noticing I was in pain and alone, I looked up another time and could feel the sun that shone. I cried out as I did before, thinking no one was listening. Oh, that was weird. Sorry.
No, no, no. This is good. This is good.
My camera showed that it turned off for a second. Sorry. So I looked up another time and could feel the sun that shone. I cried out as I did before, thinking no one was listening. But the ladder lowered down to me, and I could hear someone whistling. Again, I got lost in sorrow and grief and kept digging my life away until at last I finally realized that I was digging my very own grave. I yelled and I screamed and then cried out loud. I could not see beyond that stifling black cloud. I blamed the one and only who had given me that shovel, and anyone else's name I could barely mumble. Never once did I think I may be doing something wrong until at last I cried out, "Can you please make me strong?" This time, with a thud, the ladder came crashing. I realized in that moment what I'd been lacking. For just the way I'd been working that shovel, a ladder is meant to be climbed, not there to be groveled. The one up above had been giving me chances, a way to get out, but I only took glances. I took a deep breath, and with shovel in hand, I grabbed onto that ladder and lifted my foot from sand. The roots of the hole, like a strong, jagged thorn, were the scars of my heart trying to hook me to mourn. They grabbed onto my clothes to be a distraction, but I remembered that shovel was meant for protection. So, using the shovel to break through the emotion, I continued climbing upward, causing quite a commotion. I must have looked crazy emerging from down below, swinging a shovel on a ladder. It was quite a show. But as I looked around, tears filled my eyes. I saw other holes around me, and I could hear the cries. You see, I wasn't the only one who used the shovel the wrong way. Most of us had gotten lost and couldn't see the light of day. There were other people still who were emerging from their holes, and as we interlocked our eyes, we finally remembered our lost goals. With our shovels in our hands and our ladders leading the way, we continued on our journey and knew we'd be okay.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being around and for being another person that has shown me that you got out of that hole and that you're still fighting and you're still walking and you're there with me. And I love it. Thank you for healing out loud and being another support system for me in my wonderful journey. Like I'm grateful that you guys were willing to have me here to share a little bit about my story
Man,
and for
this is
sharing yours. So thank you.
this is huge. All right, everybody. We love y'all. Make sure to reach out to Marie, like, subscribe, share. Remember, love yourself because we love you. Until next time, everybody, take care. Peace.
Bye.